There, and a very good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining us on Citizen Briefs on this 16th day of June 2025. My name is Melita Oletenges, and of course, let's take a look at what is making headlines across the country at this hour. Now, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Lagat, has resigned, or rather has stepped aside. In a statement this afternoon that has been released, Lagat has actually stated the reason for his stepping aside, which he's saying is to allow for investigations to be carried out. And quoting that statement, he says, "In the good and conscious thought of my role and responsibilities as the Deputy Inspector General of Kenya Police Service, and in view of the ongoing investigations on the unfortunate incident of the death of Albert Ojwang, I have today opted to step aside from the office of the Deputy Inspector General of the Kenya Police Service pending completion of investigations. The functions of the office will henceforth be performed by my deputy until completion of the investigations." And Lagat goes on to say that I undertake to provide any support that may be required of me during the investigations of the unfortunate incident. I offer immense condolences to the family of Albert Ojwang for their great loss. Now, that is the latest on that developing story. DIG Lagat has stepped aside pending investigations into the murder of Albert Ojwang. This happens just moments after the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen, also issued a statement on the same, saying that going forward, the police stations across the country, 1,209, will be installed with CCTV cameras just to ensure that the policing overhaul is in place following that incident that has taken the country aback, and of course has elicited different reactions with the resignation now, or rather the stepping aside of Lagat, coming hot on the heels of Kenyans calling for his resignation, a clamor that continues to grow even as Kenyans want answers on what transpired on that night that Albert Ojwang was arraigned, or rather was brought to a central police station, and consequently his death occurred right inside the police station. Okay, meanwhile, Kibra Court has allowed police to detain 2 suspects accused of assaulting the late Ojwang for 14 days pending investigations. Kibra Magistrate Daisy Mutai has set the 7th of July as the day for mentioning of further orders. The Independent Policing and Oversight Authority argues that the suspects be escorted to a government chemist for DNA sampling, and their electronic gadgets be seized and subjected to analysis. The 2 suspects, Jean Amito and Collins Karani, are to be held at Mudangari Police Station and Kileleshwa Police Station, respectively.
To the case that we have quoted, the Mwangangi versus Republic.
Meanwhile, former Chief Justice David Maraga is now calling for the immediate arrest of DCI Director Mohamed Admin and the Inspector General Douglas Kanja for lying under oath in the murder of Albert Ojwang. The former CJ has called for the arrest and prosecution of the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Lagat, alleging that available evidence links him directly or indirectly to the brutal murder of blogger and teacher Albert Ojwang. He further warned that should no action be taken, he will join Kenyans in the streets to demand justice and accountability.
The 3 institutions charged with the maintenance of law and order, that's the National Police Service, the DCI, and the IPOA, have lied on oath. Consequently, the Kenyans have lost trust in, the Kenyan people have lost trust in them. This cannot be allowed to continue. Our institutions of human rights and the justice need a serious resetting and rebuilding. To begin this resetting and rebuilding process, we demanded the arrest of the DCI because he lied on oath, and the IG, as well as Mr. Lagat himself, and they be prosecuted, and those, of course, who are associated with the murder of Ojwang. To clear this, to be clear, we support the efforts of the other Kenyans who have already petitioned for private prosecution. And if no action is taken, we will join them and come up even with fresh charges against them. And we demand that this be done on or before the 25th of June this year.
The National Social Security Fund is moving to reassure members of the safety of their retirement savings following the release of a damning audit by the Auditor General. The report flagged up to 16 billion shillings in potential losses linked to underperforming investments and internal weaknesses. But speaking during the opening of the International Social Security Association conference in Nairobi, NSSF's top management insists there has been no loss of public funds.
If you read the auditor's report, and for the first time ever, NSSF got an unqualified audit report. Unqualified audit report. That's the most important message. The second issue, the figure they are quoting is not actually what was lost. It is misinterpretation. It is money stuck in projects. We have legacy issues, which we are dealing with. But most importantly, I want to assure the general public that their money is safe.
One investment can go bad, but that doesn't mean that the portfolio was wrong. Even you, when you make decisions, you make them for tomorrow. That's why there's this whole thing called diversification.
We've been talking about building Likoni Bridge, looking for billions of money, trying to borrow from the World Bank, trying to borrow from ADB, trying to borrow from somebody, from the Chinese, trying to borrow. But maybe National Social Security Fund, we can partner in a way that as you grow and expand with a very good vision, we don't have to borrow money to build the Nyali Bridge. We can build it with our own Kenyan money.
Now, interdicted Central OCS Samson Talaam will be detained until Wednesday, awaiting a decision on an application by prosecutors to detain him for 21 days, pending investigations into the killing of blogger and teacher Albert Ojwang. Prosecutors say there is apprehension that if released, Talaam will interfere with investigations. In their application, the investigators have accused Talaam of hiring the suspect behind the tampering of CCTV footage at Central Police Station.
Already indicated, our application is dated 16th of June 2025, the year of the Lord. You know, in summary, what we are requesting this court to do is to issue an order for what the Constitution calls detention continuing.
Denying bond on very flimsy grounds. Did they read Article 21? I am certain that they ignored it because
Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has unveiled an ambitious plan to overhaul the country's policing systems, targeting all 1,209 police stations in Kenya, with reforms that include CCTV surveillance, digitization of occurrence books, community policing, regular performance audits, and continuous professional development. In a national address on Monday, Murkomen said the reforms are designed to enhance transparency, accountability, and professionalism in the National Police Service. He added that the government will propose legislation to criminalize tampering with surveillance equipment. And while some stations have already installed CCTV systems on their own initiative, Murkomen noted that these efforts will now be standardized and fully sanctioned by the National Police Service. And of course, we are staying on that story for any other development. Still on the Cabinet Secretary on Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen says government will intensify its war on synthetic drugs across the country. Speaking during the launch of the 4th high-level consultation meeting and flagship report launch in Nairobi, Murkomen expressed concerns over the increase in the abuse and smuggling of synthetic drugs, which he said have contributed to increased health complications and crime rates. Meanwhile, the commission led by former South African President Kgalema Motlanthe has called for evidence-based policies in the fight against drugs.
Despite our robust anti-drug legislation and enforcement efforts, the influx of substances such as marijuana, heroin, and cocaine continue unabated with profound impacts on our communities. Of increasing concern is the emergence of synthetic drugs, often manufactured in clandestine laboratories operating within the region. This troubling development is largely driven by illicit trade in precursor and controlled chemicals.
To address these issues effectively, a shift towards more comprehensive policies is imperative, focusing on the root causes and consequences of drug use while providing rehabilitation and treatment options for people who use drugs, particularly women, children, and youth.
Now, a section of students from the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology, ARVIST, took to the streets to protest the deteriorating state of the access road leading to the institution. The students barricaded the Nakuru-Eldoret Highway at Ngata Bridge, causing significant traffic disruptions. Police officers intervened, deploying tear gas canisters to disperse the demonstrators. The students vowed to continue with protests until their grievances are addressed.
Barabara zetu hazipitiki, barabara ni mbaya. Waheshimiwa wetu walikuja wakarusha mawe kubwa kubwa kwa barabara na wakaenda. Hiyo barabara inaendelea kuwa hali mbaya sana, wakaji wanaumia. Tumeandika barua kila mahali, watu wa respond.
Sio hataki mambo mingi, watu ndio tu barabara juu. Pia sisi tunateseka.
We don't have street lights. According to the roads, hiyo barabara unaweza pata sana sana usiku. Kama mwanafunzi amegonjeka unapigia Uber ikuje mpeleke hospitali.
Let's now cross borders. A Tanzanian opposition politician, Tundu Lissu, has protested his treatment in prison. While appearing before Kisutu Magistrates Court in Dar es Salaam, the Chadema leader was granted right to represent himself in the ongoing treason case against him. Lissu, whose Chadema party was disqualified from the October elections, was arrested for his call for electoral reforms before the polls. Rights organizations have called his arrest and detention a political persecution of his opponents in Tanzania, calling for openness and accountability.
Ni kuu kwamba wakili na mshtakiwa wanatakiwa wasisikilizwe maneno wanayozungumza na mtu mwingine yeyote. Ni sehemu ya sheria kuu za kimataifa, Mheshimiwa Hakimu. The body of principles for the protection of all persons under any form of detention or imprisonment. Hizi body of principles inaitwa maarufu kama the Mandela Principles.
Lakini kwa sasa mshtakiwa atajitetea mwenyewe kama alivyoomba, ombi lake limekubaliwa na upande wa utetezi wameridhia hivyo. Kwa hiyo kuanzia sasa ni mawakili wa serikali dhidi ya mshtakiwa.
Now, Israel says it has full aerial operational control over the Iranian capital, Tehran, 4 days after launching strikes on the country. It says its air force carried out a wave of strikes overnight, while Iranian media reports new attacks in the west of the country on Monday. Iran hit Israel with a wave of missiles overnight, with some penetrating the Iron Dome defense system. The number killed in Israel since Friday has risen to 24. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry says its parliament is preparing a bill to withdraw from the treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. All right, that's the latest from our newsroom. At this hour, of course, more updates coming your way at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. My name is Melita Oletenges. Good afternoon.